to a little induction session with me. We shouldn't take too long, max half an hour, I think, but we'll see how we go and how many questions you guys have for me. Congratulations on being elected to be the IRC's executive for 2025. I look forward to working with you all. Unfortunately, I'm actually going to be gone for most of next year, but Anya will be around, and also Ashley, who is unfortunately on leave right now. So you got a little bit of a turnover of people, but you'll have a pretty good relationship with Ashley, who will be the main point of contact for you guys through next year. But I thought it'd be a good idea for us to kick this off whilst you're still fresh in the role and before you go away for the Christmas break. So before we kick off, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're all dialing in from today. For ARC, that's the Bidjigal, Gadigal and Ngunnawal people where we operate and work. For me, I'm actually down in Tasmania, so I'm on Palawa land. I'd like to extend my respects to elders past, present, and anyone joining us today. It's important for us to remember that sovereignty was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Today, we're just going to go through, essentially, it's admin. So first, I'm going to cover off who ARC is. I know that you guys are familiar with us in terms of, you've probably seen us running all the different events on campus, and your first touch point with us probably was O Week, but we are an organisation that it's probably worth you guys getting a little bit more familiar with. We're also going to talk about the ARC board and how the IRC's relationship with the ARC board runs. And then we're going to go through budgets, payments, planning events, resources that are available to you, who to contact, and then any questions that you've got. Just want to preface that just because we're doing this induction, I don't expect you to remember everything and for you to just run away and never ask any questions again. So especially next year when you come back after break, if you want to go through any of this again, you're more than welcome to reach out and we can go through any questions that you have. So as I mentioned, the first things we'll touch on is just what ARC is and then the ARC board itself. So just for context, ARC is officially, or the company registered name is ARC at UNSW. We were established in 2007. At the time, there were 4 different student organisations on campus. There was the UNSW Student Union, the Guild, the Postgrad Council, and the COFA, which is the College of Fine Arts Association. And then some legislation came in 2007 or 2006 about voluntary student unionism, which meant that all of those 4 organisations needed to form one, which is why we're called, which is what we are, ARC. It's not an acronym. It doesn't stand for anything. It's supposed to be representative of the, ARC over student life. Someone in 2007 thought that was a good idea and we're stuck with it. So just for reference, it's capital A, little r, little c. We are not a part of the uni. We're a separate organisation. So we're a public company limited by guarantee, and we're actually a registered charity with the Australian Not-for-Profits Commission, which does mean that a lot of the time when you are going out to external parties and trying to get quotes for things, it's always worth mentioning that we're a not-for-profit, because a lot of the time they'll give you like a 10%, 15% charities discount. So just keep that in mind if you're ever asking for quotes from externals for anything. The relationship with UNSW, as I said, we're a separate entity, so we're actually not part of the uni, but we do have a funding and support agreement with them. Which is how we sort of manage our relationship and the things that we deliver on their behalf. And we are funded using the university's funds from SAF, which is your Student Services and Amenities Fee. The ARC board is made up of 15 directors, which seems like a big board, but it's not unusual for organisations of our kind of very niche industry. Of those 15 directors, 10 of them are students. So one of them is Anya. The other 7 are another 7 board directors who are elected specifically to sit on the board. And then there's the Student Representative Council President and the Postgrad Council President also sit on the board. So you've got 10 students out of 15 managing our organisation. And then just for reference, we have about 55, it's probably closer to 60 now actually, permanent staff and around 200 casual staff. Majority of those are students. Now, the organisation is quite multifaceted. We do quite a few things. So the things that you'll be the most familiar with are these green bits on the sort of right-hand side, which is all of our sort of student-facing services, which is your clubs, volunteering, wellness, sport, resources that you can hire from reception, and then art and design over at the Paddington campus. But then we also have a lot of these other branches. So corporate services, as every organisation has, we've got IT, we've got HR, finance, all those boring things. I'm the orange box, so I'm governance and admin. We have a free legal service for students. We have 2 full-time in-house lawyers that will provide legal services to students for free as long as they're an ARC member. So that's something worth keeping up your sleeve. We deal with, it doesn't have to be necessarily university related queries like appealing things or special considerations, etc. We also help with like tenancy and Centrelink and migration, which is a big one. Venue and events, that is the Roundhouse and Homeground. And Thirsty Burger, which is owned and run by ARC. We have sales, which is your grad shop. And then we have an in-house marketing team that looks after all of the beautiful things and designs for our assets, sorry, for our events that you see on posters and flags and marquees around campus. Okay. ARC board, I've already run you through who's on the board, but essentially the board is just like any other organisation. They manage the strategic direction and governance and oversight of the organisation. So these students that sit on the board are not there just as a token to say we're student-led. They actually are in charge of what this organisation does. And of that, we do have some subcommittees, which I'll skip this page. The subcommittees of the board, which focus on the different areas of the organisation so that the board can be the best informed for all of its decisions. None of these are really going to matter to you except for the Student Development Committee. So as you can see here, the IRC has like a dotted line into the SDC. And the SDC is the subcommittee that looks after all of your student-facing programs. So everything to do with clubs and volunteering and also to do with the councils. Anya, who is joining us online, is our Student Development Committee convener. So she looks after that council. Anya, did you want to throw your camera on and give a little intro and say a few things? Yep.
Okay, but sorry if it's a bit loud where I am. I'm overseas. But my name is Anya. Hopefully you see me a little bit around because I am, like, I just graduated, I just my 2 years at master. So I've been around the college scene for a while. So hopefully you see me around. So be happy and like just know that I've also seen the college side of it, so I know both sides of it. I started my role at an SDC just in July this year, so I'm kind of learning the ropes a little bit, but I'm here to help you guys out. I knew like the old IRC did really well, the executive team, and I work with them a little bit. I'm obviously hoping you guys a lot more. But as you can see just in the slide here, so the SDC is just like a subcommittee within the board, and got a lot of students that committee, and we've also got a couple of like alumni directors, and we've got UNSW staff directors as well, and we kind of overlook a lot of things to do with SRC, PGC, and IRC, and also like volunteering and all that. But with IRC, the main things we like to do is we recently put this in the IRC charter that we receive activity reports every time we meet. So we meet four times a year. So at each of those meetings, we would receive an activity report from the IRC, which tells us, what events you guys have put on, what the results of, like how many people have come to those events, what the budget is looking like, and that just keeps us in the loop a little bit. Obviously, like we would love for you guys to be at the meetings, and I think we've recently just put it in the charter that the IRC president has to come to a meeting, and if they can't attend the meeting, they have to give like a delegate, other member of the executive team. So ARC delegate can be that could be the secretary, it could be treasurer, anyone. Just because we found there was a little bit of it was kind of hard for us to receive these reports that were made like weeks in advance. And by the time we've had the meeting, the event's already happened, and we don't know what happened with the event. Well, we did know because we had a lot of people at college on the board or in that subcommittee, but we don't know from the ARC perspective. But of course, so I know the college side of things. So if you guys have any questions, come to me. Is there another slide that I need to?
No, well, I mean, the rest of it goes into the board relationship, which you've just touched on, which is the attending meetings and providing the reports. So good.
Yeah, so basically attend those meetings, provide an IRC report. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It just has to be, for example, there was the IRC bingo night last Thursday. Oh, literally Joelle's on top of it. She knows. So this is like an example of an IRC activity report. So normally the president prepares that. So Liv prepared a lot of them. But just to kind of, I know I touched on the SRC and P. You don't really need to know about that as much, but just know that we kind of overlook them as well. So IRC is not the only thing we focus on. The big thing is we give you that budget, and I know that the big focus is going to be the transition with IRC and ICSA, or COSA now, sorry. So recently, previously ICSA has been a part of IRC, and that's been a big thing of IRC had to give a lot of money to ICSA. But recently, as COSA has become its own entity under ARC Sport, so now you don't have to worry about giving them a budget, and instead you can use the whole budget that we give you as ARC purely on IRC events. Joelle's probably going to go, I know she's going to go into event planning, but I just wanted to quickly say one point as well. A little bit piece of advice that I noticed was a bit of an issue this year with the IRC events. I noticed this as an SCC convener and also as the secretary of and my IRC director would tell me, is that the IRC previously has planned, or especially this year, wanting to, up their game, engage a lot more crowds, and they have done that. But the issue is they create events, and then the budget doesn't kind of reflect what events they're trying to create, and that has been a bit of an issue. So I would recommend, obviously, engage people, but I think the momentum the IRC is going on so far is going great post COVID. Really, the game is upping again, and we're getting more numbers. So if you need any help, let us know. I'll let me know or let Ashley know, and I'm here to help, of course. If there's anything else you have questions about, you can email me my ARC number, my ARC email, or literally just messenger me or Facebook messenger me. But yeah, if there's anything else, Joelle, I'm happy to talk about it. But otherwise,
no, that's all. Thank you, Anya. We're going to set up next year. We set up sort of every 5 to 6 weeks a catch up with the IRC. So that'll be Ashley and then my replacement for next year, as well as Anya. So you guys will have a regular touch point with ARC. So you guys can have these meetings and ask any questions. But if anything falls outside of those meetings, you're welcome to reach out to Anya or Ashley in the interim. But we'll let you get back to the wedding, Anya.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Sorry about that background noise. Was there anything that she said that you guys couldn't catch? Because I know the audio was a bit tricky, but I think I kind of deciphered what she was saying.
Yeah, I think that's all good.
Okay, awesome. Lovely. The only other thing that the slide that I skipped, it's not super important, but just to show you what the board structure looks like. So these are the 8 student directors that are elected, and you'll see there's Anya here. We have 2 alumni directors. So these are people that used to have something to do with ARC. Maybe they were a volunteer, maybe they maybe they had a position as a club executive or similar. And then they've gone on into the world and then come back 5 to 10 years later as a volunteer director on our board. So that's what those 2 positions are, John and Sarah. We have 2 university directors. So they're appointed by the VC's office and they sit on our board as well. That's just as part of that, ongoing connection to the uni to make sure that we have this legislated presence on our board. And then the SRC and PGC directors, presidents, and Shelley Valentine, who I'm sure you'll meet in the coming weeks and months. She's our CEO, and Oscar Idell. I'm not sure if you guys know Oscar, but he's the chair of the board, so he's also a student. Okay, before we move on to sort of budgets and admin, do you have any questions about ARC board, relationship between ARC and the IRC? Nope. Awesome. Okay, so moving on to admin and admin and budgets. So I sent you all, except for the delegate, because I needed to get that changed, your logins this morning for your IRC sort of ARC accounts. They were sent out with the passwords. Let us know if you have any issues. I always struggle with the multi-factor authentication and resetting of passwords. So if you have any problems, just send me an email. I will be creating a team site on our ARC domain so that you guys, if you would like to, want to sort of put all of your IRC docs, whether that be event planning or budgets or whatever, save that into a central folder rather than keeping that separate, because otherwise it's quite hard sort of year to year being able to try and reflect on what previous councils have done. So we thought that might be helpful for this year. Just for reference, all of the official sort of ARC communications between us and you will be sent to your IRC account. So I recommend setting up a forwarding rule if you don't want to have to flick between the 2 different sort of domains or email accounts. Organize that. And then the other thing that I will show you, but we'll talk a little bit more about the different things on the page, is this IRC sort of insider web page. I'm not sure if the previous council already went through it with you. Essentially, it's just an inward-facing home website page. So this isn't, no one can navigate to this on the ARC website. It's only if you have the actual link. So just make sure you bookmark it. I'll send you these slides afterwards. But essentially, this holds everything that we think that you need. So it's a copy of your budget, the payment forms. That's when you want to submit something to be approved for payments to access the budget. If you need anything printed, there's a template for that IRC activity report that needs to go to board or to SDC. ARC's regulations and constitution, if you feel like some reading, the IRC charter, and then this is sort of your booking form. So if you want to book the roundhouse, CATS rooms, which are the rooms on campus that the university manages, outdoor spaces, resources are things like trestle tables, picnic benches, megaphones, things like that you want to book through ARC reception. And then there are 2 rooms next to ARC reception. There's a music room and a dance room, if that feels like something you want. And then you can book sports fields as well. We're going to talk a little bit more about events and event planning, but essentially these are some tools that you might need. So there's a like a checklist for planning events just to help you with the planning. Marketing job form is so that you can submit a job with ARC Marketing if you want something designed. The event risk form, which is helping you identify what kind of terms and conditions and waivers you might need on your different events and the risk level. This is the risk assessment template that the university asks for if you're booking any of their spaces. And then if you need to report any incidents, I will put the deck and the recording. This is last year's. I'll put the current one here. And just any other useful contacts. Other than that, we'll move on to budget. So as Anya mentioned, last year and in previous years, there was two lines in the IRC budget, which was social and sport. The IRC, even though ICSA was not necessarily, well, not necessarily, was not and is not a part of the IRC, there was a lot of historical expectation that the IRC would fund ICSA's endeavours. That is not the case anymore. The ICSA, which is now called COSA, is now affiliated with ARC Sport and they will access their budget through ARC Sport. So the charter has been updated. IRC is no longer to fund the ICSA, COSA. So all of those funds are now in one line. So instead of it being split as 700 for sport and 700 for social, your budget is from Feb to November with $1,400 per month allocated there. That is the ARC budget. In the past, the IRC has managed to secure extra funds from UNSW or from other endeavours. So if you do that, then obviously you've got supplementary budget. And also if you are selling tickets for events, which we'll talk about in a minute, the revenue from those tickets can then be used towards your events again to fund future activities. So that's also possible. Any questions on the budget before I go through how to actually use it? Nope, cool. All right, so the budget process. The first thing I wanted to say, which I did kind of mention last week when some of us met, was that planning your events is really important and getting those dates and sort of events locked in is super important, but I think you're already on it. You've already planned out a lot of what you're going to do next year, so that's ace. As you saw in the budget, we don't know how you want to spend your money, so it's all allocated monthly. But if you are going to do something big in April and you're not really going to use your money as much in Feb and March, then you just need to submit via the payment form an accrual, which basically just means we're planning a Battle of the Bands in April, so we want to use all of our money in April. So you just submit the form to say you're accruing the $1,400 from Feb and March into April. But I'll go through accruals again in a second. The expenditure form is just this payment form, which is super self-explanatory. You just fill out the fields and submit it. It's essentially saying who you are, what you want to do. So you've already paid for an expense and you need it to be reimbursed. You need us to pay an invoice or you want to accrue the money. Where am I taking the money from? So this will either be that social line, which has the $1,400 in it, ticket income, which is if you've got income from like an Eventbrite event where you've sold tickets, or if you've gotten additional funds from, Neil Morris or colleges or anywhere else, and you give us the details, you attach the invoice or quotes that you've got, and then you hit submit. It's pretty self-explanatory. Once it is submitted, the president needs to approve it. So I've sent you some login details for, it's called Fraction. It's our finance system. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a better name, but essentially you'll get a notification once we've submitted something for payment, and you need to approve it in there, and then that'll actually go through to either the person's bank account that we're reimbursing or to the business that we're paying. Making sure you include those quotes, invoices, web links, etc. Now, with the accruals, the reason we have to do them is it's what our accountants/auditors tell us we have to do. So the only time we will allow an accrual is if you can actually tell us what the event is for. So, for example, if you're doing a Battle of the Bands in April, totally fine for you to accrue the money across and say it's for Battle of the Bands in April. But if you don't know what you're doing yet and you're just trying to hold on to the money until June, we can't officially accrue the money. I can't put that through as an accrual to say, please move the money across, because our auditors always ask what it's for. And if I don't have a good enough explanation, they won't let us do it. So that's why planning is super important. Try and plan out what you're doing, and then you can accrue the money accordingly. If you don't accrue because you don't know what you're doing yet, that's totally fine. It doesn't mean that you automatically lose the money. It just means that we have to be able to explain to the board why the finances look weird. So it's easy. It's best if we can just move the money across and explain it as we're going along, rather than having like a big expense in November that we didn't plan for. The only exceptions to that kind of process in terms of submitting the form and getting payments to happen or submitting accruals is if the expense is for an ARC business. So say you're having an event at the Roundhouse, you don't need to submit it through that form. You just send us an email with a copy of the email from the Roundhouse that says how much it's going to cost, and we'll do the internal transfer for you. For reference, as long as it's an IRC event, Roundhouse doesn't charge hire fees, so you can hire out the main room of the Roundhouse and it won't cost you anything from a venue hire perspective. There will be costs in terms of, security and AV and tech and all that sort of stuff, but in terms of the hire itself, that's free. And equally, if you wanted to organise something where it's, for example, the IRC caps and chats, is that what it's called? I've emailed our home ground about it. They haven't come back to me just yet, but that would also be an internal transfer. So you get it at a discounted rate, and we could just do it on the back end for you. We've already talked about ICSA/COSA. Any questions about the budget process?
No. Thank you.
Cool. All right. The outgoing IRC has hopefully provided you with the Eventbrite login details. No, that's okay. If they haven't, I'll make a note now. I can reset the login and then send it to you. Let me just make that note.
Yeah, I'm meeting Olivia today and I'll ask her about it. But if she doesn't have it, I'll come back to you with that.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Let me know if she doesn't pass it on. Just for reference, we're highly likely to be moving to Humanitix at the beginning of next year, which is our preferred platform, but we just needed to wait for IT to do all of its vetting from a security perspective, which is finally sort of in its final stages. So there is a likelihood that the Eventbrite won't be being used anymore, and we'll set up a new account for you on Humanitix. But until you hear from us, use Eventbrite. When you use the Eventbrite, all of the income that you get from tickets hits ARC's bank account, and then we allocated it to the IRC. So if you want to use those funds, you just tick that option on the form that I showed you before, and then we'll be able to use that, like draw down on those funds to pay for whatever it is that you're trying to do. Similarly, we talked about external funding. So if you were to secure funding from, I know Neil is the main contact for UNSW when you're trying to get some additional funds. So if you do secure any, email us with the details, and then we will organise with Neil to get him or whoever it is to pay the funds into ARC's bank account. And again, we'll hold it for you. The difference with those ones is that both Neil and also if you secure any grants, sometimes EDI will give you grants if you apply for them to run sort of equity, diversity, inclusion based events. They expect the funds to be fully spent within the calendar year, so you can't roll that over to the council next year. That is essentially it about the budgets. No questions? Cool. Event planning, we kind of covered this last week, but don't wing it, get organised as early as you can. Isabel emphasised this, but you guys need to get your events approved by colleges in the first instance. ARC has a slightly less strict approach to events than colleges, and there's been a bit of confusion in the past about what's allowed and what's not. So my request is that you guys get your events vetted by the relevant college heads before we get to the final stages on our end, because we have had some had to be cancelled at the last minute or significantly kind of pivoted at the last minute because colleges weren't on board with it. So just make sure that you're getting that done. I've got here a hyperlink just to a template or checklist that helps you plan out your events, just in terms of resourcing and all that sort of stuff. If you are concerned about budget, or you've got a grand idea and you're trying to work out how to do it, please reach out to us. Sometimes there's an ability to collaborate with existing events that we're doing or to leverage other sort of partnerships that we have. So please ask for help. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. A lot of the time what you're doing has been done in some way, shape or form in the past, especially including things like doing a risk assessment form for an event. There's a chance that we've already run a similar event in the past and we can give you a template for that risk assessment, or a good one to sort of frame off. UNSW /ARC has a pretty notoriously shit relationship with the weather. And no matter how many times we plan an event in like January, or maybe that's a bad example because that's break, but February, it ends up getting rained out. So just always have a back of your mind plan B, or a date that you're going to call it by if the weather's still looking like it's going to be trash for your outdoor event. Just keep that in mind, because unfortunately we get sun in July and rain in Feb. So just keep that in the back of your head. Make sure you've got your to-do list and you assign your tasks accordingly. And that doesn't mean that you four have to do everything. You've got a whole council of people that are supposed to be there to support you. So please make sure that you're using them. If you need us to design anything, posters, assets, online things, please put your marketing job in as soon as possible. I believe you've got website training with Mitch tomorrow. Some of you, one of you. Yep, cool. So they'll go through the ins and outs of the marketing job, as well as the updating of the website. And then also, make sure that you are entering your resource or room bookings as soon as possible. The only caveat there is with the CATS rooms, so they're the UNSW managed like academic rooms. They will only approve bookings a term in advance. So if you have anything for T1, you can do that at the beginning of the year, but they won't do any approvals for T2 bookings until they've worked out their timetabling. So those ones, if you are trying to book like a big theatre or something, they won't give it to you until closer to the term having commenced. The other thing to consider with your events is to work out whether you need to actually do registrations for it versus like a expression of interest. Main reason for your ticketing is your capacity management, any catering or dietaries, if you need people's contact information, working out how many tables, chairs, whatever you need. Also, if you need the data for any reason, if you need to be able to see how many people from different colleges came and you want to be able to collect that information, do that in the ticket registration process. But the biggest thing is to gather terms and conditions or waivers for an event. So let's just say you're running a cruise that's off-site, there would be some significant terms and conditions that people would need to agree to when they register for those tickets. So there's a form on the insider page that I recommend you complete. It's just the event form, and that helps us determine the level of risk of the event, which kinds of waivers or T's and C's are needed, and if you are trying to get access to ARC's public liability insurance because it's been requested from an external party, then we need to be able to see what the event is before we approve that. So just keep in mind that you're not automatically covered under ARC's public liability. You need to submit that event form in order to get that approval. And those terms and conditions can get added to your Eventbrite like rego process. There's an option on the form that says additional T's and C's, and you just drop them in, which we'll provide you with once you submit the form. The last thing to consider is just make your registration process for events as low barrier to entry as possible. So consider the questions you're asking and whether you actually need them. For example, if you're having an event at the Roundhouse, you probably don't really need to know whether they're male or female or gender diverse, unless there's something to do with bathrooms that you need to accommodate for. But otherwise, some questions are really not that necessary. Any questions about events or ticketing or terms and conditions or risk? Nope. Cool. Other things. So if you need to print anything, there's a printing form on the page, and ARC on the insider page, sorry, and ARC reception will print them off for you, so they can do A4 and A3, I believe. You just need to submit it with a couple of working days notice for them to print it off for you, and they'll send you an email from reception saying when it's ready to come and collect. Please remember to collect. We did have some last year where there was some requests for like 1,000 copies or something, and then no one ever actually came to get it, and it just goes in the bin. So if you please only put the submission in if you need it, and remember to come and get it. The other things we've talked about ICSA. So if you have any questions or problems, like the new COSA ICSA, people are asking you for funding for something and they have an issue with you saying no, please reach out to us and we'll help you out. But they should be pretty across it that their funding comes from ARC Sport now and not from you. Please do those, I think, what are they called? MOEs? Yep. Please make sure you do those, because it's not uncommon for us to get frantic calls from college heads asking about events that they haven't, given the tick of approval for. So I would appreciate if that's all checked on your end. If you need any help with it, let us know. Their biggest concern in the past has been, I guess, threefold. One, alcohol-based events, so events that seemingly are just a party with very little food. So that's where in the past we've made sure there's a food package alongside the drinking. The second thing is there's a increasing discomfort with events that are focused around gambling. So I know there used to be a bingo night and a casino night and things like that. Please get them vetted first. I'm not sure how strict they're being this year, but I know that last year the casino night, actually don't know if it ended up going ahead, but there's some discomfort. Yeah, there you go. But it did get into planning stages, and I think that's why it fell through. So try not to pick events that are focused on gambling if you can. And then the other thing was prohibitive ticket pricing. So just keep in mind that not everyone at college has the dollary dues to spend $75 on a ticket for an event. So if you can, keep costs low and ticketing prices low, or offer some subsidized tickets or whatever it is you need to do. You can talk to us about how to structure that, but please keep that in mind for your events. I think they were the main problems, and just not getting the events sort of vetted or approved in advance. Anya already touched on this, but there was a couple of changes to the IRC charter, one of them being the removal of funding for ICSA, and the other one being that if, Irina, you can't attend the SDC meetings, next year, then to send someone else in your place. We will schedule those catch-ups. How frequent would you guys like to have a catch-up with art? I've done it 4 weekly, 5 weekly, 6 weekly in the past, and they've all kind of had varying levels of success. So what's a good middle ground for you guys, do you think, in terms of regularity?
5, so like twice a try.
Yeah, twice a try would be.
Okay, and when do you want to start that? Which week?
Well, we'll probably have like questions, etc. for like when we're like planning our first big kind of event. So maybe like
week 3,
maybe?
week 2 or 3,
so
yeah.
Give us a week.
Yep, okay.
A week, yeah.
Thank you.
And is there you don't have your timetables for next year, do you? Not yet. Okay. I'll pick a day that's just the back end of week 2 for now and make the schedule from there. But please reach out once you've got your timetables and we can move it to a time that suits either all of you or most of you. And then we can move that each term, obviously, as your timetables change. Cool. I should have looked this up before I pulled this up. The first IRC meeting, let me just be a cheeky, I'm going to move this over here and quickly look up when it is so that you can pop it in your calendar. The first SDC meeting for the IRC president to attend is, so sorry, the 19th of Feb. So just keep that in mind, but you'll get an invitation for that shortly.
Perfect.
The other thing that I'll flag, and this is across the year, there'll be a few things that we ask you guys to sort of share in terms of either event promotion or just communications across colleges. One of those, the first ones of those will be the T1 board nomination. So our ARC board will be appointing or running an election to fill 4 student positions, and we like to circulate that to the college community, because they tend to be the most sort of engaged and active on campus students, and our board has historically had quite a few college students on the board. So we'd love for you to promote that for us, and we'll obviously reach out to you for other things like the SRC and PGC elections later on in the year. One of the things that our marketing team did with you with the IRC this year was I believe it was weekly, although there was a couple of weeks that fell through the cracks, where we would send you guys a list of all the events that were coming up over the next couple of weeks so that you could push out that promotion. So I will link you up with Mitch and Alex, who organised that in 2024, to keep that going for 2025, and you can keep that promotion going on. Speaking of promotion, IRC Instagram page. You guys still keen to do that?
Yeah.
Awesome. If you can, because it's going to be inward facing, and I'm assuming a private account that then only people that are colleges will kind of follow. I don't see any sort of huge red flags on my end. I'm going to run it past Mitch, who does manage all of our sort of social media and marketing things. Mitch will meet tomorrow for the training, and just check there's any other parameters from their perspective, but they'll help you get it set up. But I would love for you to just get like a written approval from Isabel or whoever you think it's appropriate, because I know that she had some concerns about it. So just as long as you're meeting the criteria that she mentioned in the meeting, which was inward facing. Oh gosh, I can't even remember what else she said. There was a couple of things that she was concerned about. So just make sure that you get that okay from her. And then we can help you get that set up.
Awesome, thank you.
List of contacts. I won't run through them all, but essentially here are the people that you can reach out to if your initial sort of inquiries or requests aren't actioned as quickly as you'd like. So if you submit a inquiry with the Roundhouse and they haven't come back to you within the week, then you can reach out to Tiana, etc. So these are all the people that you can follow up your requests with if you don't hear back within a timely manner. And that's it. I've talked to you a lot.
Thank you.
Have you got any questions for me?
My Wi-Fi is not working, but I think we've had some trouble logging into our ARC email.
I think the reason why Annalisa, who you know from last year, she mentioned that it might be an issue. So the emails that we have are like mine is like IRC secretary, all in one word. So they don't work when we like input it. But I think if you put a dot in between like IRC and secretary, so like IRC.secretary, I think it works then.
Yeah.
That's just letting you know in case you want to record, like, in case like for next year. Or like
the email that I'll just stop sharing. But what did I send you on my email? I thought it was IRC dot.
So my unit and my username is IRC.secretary, but then if I click on your email is like @Jacqueline, the actual email is without it.
That's so frustrating. So two of you have dots, which is president and delegate, and then treasurer and secretary don't have dots. That's such a random IT glitch. I'm so sorry. We will fix that for next year if you guys can run with that this year. So Jacqueline and Pina, you've got no dot. And then Irina, and oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I've still got Fernando written down here, and obviously Fernando is not your name. Can you please tell me your name again?
Dominic.
Dominic, thank you. Sorry. I just sent out about 40 different email accounts this morning to all the SRC and PGC as well, so my brain's not working. Sorry, Dominic. I will get yours set up as soon as IT tells me that it's updated. I think that's all I have on my... Yeah, that's all I have on my slides. Any other questions?
Good.
Yeah,
all good. Any questions, Jackie?
No, good.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Really
That's
appreciate it.
okay. Was there anything off the back of the meeting we had last week that I was supposed to action and I didn't?
I will just double check that.
You sent me an email. Let me have a look.
I think that was for sent you the ARC delegate stuff, and then
Oh, here we go. Yep, the minutes.
just pass on our contacts to Mitch.
Oh, for the IRC benefits scheme. Yep, I'll do that today.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, that's okay. Please reach out if you think of anything else. I will put these slides and the recording on the website. And yeah, I'm sure I'll speak to you again before the end of the year. But if not, lovely to meet you all. Excited to see what you do next year.
Thank you. Appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you.
Bye.
See ya.